Hello, and welcome to Conversations from the World of Allergy, a podcast produced by the American Academy of Allergy, Asthma, and Immunology. I'm your host, Dave Stukas. I'm a board-certified allergist and immunologist and serve as a social media medical editor for the Academy. Our podcast series will use different formats to interview thought leaders from the world of allergy and immunology. This podcast is not intended to provide any individual medical advice to our listeners. We do hope that our conversations provide evidence-based information. Any questions pertaining to one's own health should always be discussed with their personal physician. The Find an Allergist search engine on the Academy website is a useful tool to locate a listing of board-certified allergists in your area. Finally, use of this audio program is subject to the American Academy of Allergy, Asthma, and Immunology Terms of Use Agreement, which you can find at www.AAAAI.org. Today's edition of our Conversations from the World of Allergy podcast series is targeted towards Academy membership, practicing allergists, and allied health personnel, as well as office managers and more. You're going to hear about all this in a second. And we're very pleased to welcome today's guest, who is Dr. Vivian Hernandez-Trujillo, who is the director of the Division of Allergy and Immunology and the Fellowship Program Director at Nicklaus Children's Hospital in Miami, Florida. Dr. Hernandez-Trujillo's clinical and research interests focus on food allergy, anaphylaxis, and primary immune deficiency. She's been extensively involved in our professional organizations, including as the current co-chair for the Practice Management Workshop Planning Committee, which is why she is the perfect guest for today's episode. With that, Dr. Hernandez-Trujillo, thank you so much for taking the time to join us, and welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Dave. I'm really excited to be back, and I congratulate you on an amazing podcast, which is well appreciated by all of your colleagues.
Well, thank you very much. And you've been a guest in the past. And actually, as I was putting this together, I went back through just to see, and I realized that you were a guest on podcast number 13 many, many moons ago, at which time you discussed, when and how to evaluate children with recurrent infections. And now here we are, almost 5 years later, your guest for episode, ready for this? 113. So, what's new with you?
That is so exciting. In addition to being co-chair of the actual committee for the workshop, I actually am now the chair of Practice Management Committee. So that's in addition, this is very dear to my heart, and I'm really excited to talk about the workshop.
Oh, this is great. And, you're so busy with clinical care and research and everything you have going on at your institution, but you've really spent most of your career, at least as far as I can think back, contributing to various professional organizations, especially the Academy. What initially motivated you to get involved within committees and now really more leadership roles, and what keeps you motivated to stay involved?
I think early on, my mentors really encouraged me to get involved, not only for different opportunities, but also to meet people, right? So networking is something that's so important, and really our leadership organizations give us that opportunity. When I first graduated from fellowship, and we all have mentors in different areas, right? So I had mentors who taught me, but then you kind of meet people. And through the Academy, Alan Bach actually encouraged me to get involved in the Academy and nominated me to be anaphylaxis committee chair. And I was very young and I was very newly graduated, but I was so excited to have that opportunity. So really, it was an opportunity not only to get involved, to meet people, but to give back. And the reason that I have continued, honestly, to be involved, and it's really been an honor and a privilege, is I do enjoy giving back. And now I've been more involved in working, with fellows and trainings. And I started a fellowship training program at Nicklaus Children's back in 2016. And it's been an amazing opportunity to collaborate with our organizations and really give back and just work with the young and the future of our specialty.
One of my favorite questions that I like to ask our guests is if they have any advice for our listeners who aren't quite sure if or how they should get more involved within the Academy or really any professional or advocacy organization. As somebody who's gone down this path and you love working with, junior faculty and fellows in training, do you have any advice or any thoughts?
I do. I think you just have to think about what you're passionate about. And I tell young allergists this all the time. So think about what your passion is. And then once you know what that is, it will give you the opportunity either to become involved in a committee, which is a great way really to start. And then, there are advocacy organizations, there's many, and that has also been a passion of mine, is collaborating and trying to help just educate in general about immune deficiency, about anaphylaxis. And I think that once you find what is important to you, the door is there. You just have to open it, and you just have to take that opportunity and speak to other people that and especially people that have been around for a while. They can also kind of guide you, and they can tell you, maybe you really like to be part of this committee, or some of us may know that there's different ongoing projects for different committees, and there might be something there. So I think it's just important to have that continuing conversation and continue the communication.
Oh, I love that. Can you recall any experience where you reached out to somebody that you thought maybe was, big in the field that maybe didn't have time for you, and you just kind of cold called them or introduced yourself in a meeting and found that they were, actually delighted to talk with you? Has that happened to you?
Oh, that has happened to me many times. I think just like off the top of my head, you know, walking up to Mariana Castells at a
Hmm.
meeting, introducing myself, and I can honestly say, like, now I can reach out, and she's been amazing. She's one example of a person who has really and just encouraged me, right? Even as a young fellowship training program director, she came up and she encouraged me. And those are the types of opportunities, never be scared to reach out. The worst that will happen is you may not hear back. And sometimes it's not that someone's not interested. They might have gotten busy, but if you reach back the second time, they might actually respond, right? So I think
Yeah.
that is one example. Yeah. So Dr. Costello.
No, I think that's great. And I've had similar examples, and you find that, our specialty is just filled with such great people and great mentors. So that's wonderful advice that you shared with us. All right. Well, why don't we move on to the focus of today's episode? Let's just start with some basic information. When and where is the 2024 Practice Management Workshop taking place?
So the workshop is going to be taking place July 12th to the 14th in Denver, Colorado. And we're very excited not only about the location, but about all the different topics that we'll be discussing.
Excellent. And let's not bury the lead. How can interested listeners register to attend?
I know that the Academy is actively sending out emails regarding the workshop. So in those emails, there are links. And then if not, it's like everything else. I really just recommend, go to the Academy's website, and you can see the meetings there, and the practice management meeting registration will be there.
Excellent. And for those who find us on the Academy website under our Conversations in the World of Allergy podcast, we will put a link in there as well. So you can click directly through it if you find us on the landing page. Will there be a virtual option available?
This year there won't be a live virtual stream, but all the sessions will be recorded, and people can purchase those after the event. And if you're a live attendee, all the recordings are part of the registration.
Excellent. I think that's my favorite part of the post-pandemic world that we live in, right? So remember, we didn't used
Yes,
to have this just a few years ago, but that's fantastic. So everybody will have
it is.
access to those sessions and attend, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. More logistics. Will there be CME available? And if so, do you happen to know the maximum number of hours that somebody will be able to claim?
Yes, there will be CME available. The maximum CME is 18.5 hours with all the recordings.
Okay. Well, what's the purpose of having a standalone practice management workshop during the summer months? And why not just include these sessions throughout the annual meeting or through a series of webinars or something like that?
This has actually come up. There's a number of reasons. First of all, the Academy's meeting every year is so incredible, and there's so much information, and there's so many great sessions even that compete with each other, that it's really not possible to get all of the programming in. But more importantly, one of the things that I love about this meeting is the networking. So being together, and it's a smaller setting, right? It's not an enormous meeting. It is a smaller setting, but it gives you the opportunity to have more one-on-one conversations about so many topics. There are just so many topics that will be covered, and we'll talk about some of them today, but they're really important. And it really doesn't matter if you're in academics or you're in private practice. It's important for all of us, because the future of our specialty depends on all of us collectively.
Mm. And not to put you on the spot, and you may not know this, and that's okay, but ballpark number of folks who generally attend this each year?
No, I do know. It's somewhere between like 125 and 200. That has
Oh,
kind of
okay.
gone up and down a little with the pandemic, but that is in general, yeah, 125 to 200. So it's a great meeting.
Yeah, that's great. I was just talking to somebody about this recently of these smaller, more regional meetings are such a fantastic event. It feels a little more personal. The annual meeting is great as well, of course, but these are just different. And like you said, the networking aspect is so fantastic.
Exactly.
Who's the target audience for the practice management workshop? And generally, where do what parts of practice they come from?
So the target audience really is any either practicing allergist or even fellow in training. And I say that because my very first meeting, I was a fellow in training, and I was encouraged to attend. And there I met so many people who really have helped guide me in the different positions that I've had career wise. So really, it's the fellows in training, the new allergists who are graduating, and anyone that really is, and it's not just allergists, right? It's also our ancillary staff. It's the people that help us. It's our whole team. It's important because you have opportunities to not only make sure that you're doing things the way, because these laws change about everything, the compounding that has happened, the regulations. It's important because it gives us the opportunity to kind of refresh on those and then talk about things like coding and billing, which is always important. So whether you're just graduating or you have been in practice for many years, keeping up on that is important because that ensures that you will be reimbursed for all the work that you do.
And I think that segues nicely into the next question. And I'm taking this directly from the website for the registration for the practice management workshop, which states that this is a weekend devoted exclusively to the business side of medicine, programmed by allergists for allergists and their practice staff. So tell us a little more. Why is this important for us to discuss and learn about, particularly in our current times?
Well, as we all know, it's becoming more and more difficult to really just focus on the patients. There's a lot of distraction, whether it's mandates that are made for either documentation, electronic medical record. There's just a lot of distraction. Whether it's what's happened now with the Change Healthcare, that's really a threat to the survival not only of allergy but in medicine. Especially if you're, I actually don't know what's worse, if you're a small practice or hospitals that rely on that consistent reimbursement. The cyber security threat that happened with Change Healthcare really has affected a lot of medical practices across the country, whether it's allergy or otherwise. And again, it's important because regulations do change, and for allergists, because of our immunotherapy, the compounding changes are important to be aware of, and you need to comply with them. And those are the types of topics that are discussed at these meetings that really, I feel, just add so much benefit and value. Last year, we had hands-on workshops for things like that, and we talked a lot about the compounding, and everyone got to see different products and things. And I think that's really valuable. Those are some of the most positive feedback comments that we get back every year after the meeting has ended.
Hmm. When I looked at the theme for this year's workshop, it's Elevate Your Practice for a Sustainable Future. Can you tell us a little bit more about why this was chosen and what it alludes to?
It's interesting to me, and I think obviously when going back to 4 years ago when everything started with the pandemic and really the threat to all of us, this is it's such a perfect time about the sustainable future because, again, we are board certified allergists. We have trained in the treatment of all these, but as we know, there are many people that like to say that they can either do the same thing we do or not. And I think it's just important to remember that we have our own value, we have our training, our board certification is very important and means something, and there's value there. And just understanding that as time goes on, and we may encounter different challenges, it's always going to happen. But as long as we kind of stay a little bit ahead, or at least know, okay, this is what's expected, that's really the best that we can do. And that will, help us as time goes on and we encounter these different challenges.
Yeah, I love that so much. And I was actually at a meeting recently, and this came up a few times of the concept of it's okay for us to embrace our expertise. As board certified
100%.
allergists, immunologists, right? We have a special skill set. We have a different level of training and understanding, and we need to own that because we can offer such great benefits to our patients in many realms. And I think that really fits in with what you just described.
Absolutely. And if we don't own it, somebody else will.
Yeah, even more important, absolutely. How about, how's the weekend going to go? What can people expect? Is it just a series of didactic presentations, one after the other? Is it designed to be more interactive? Tell us a bit more.
So it's wonderful, I think, because it's kind of a mix of everything. There's a lot of time for networking. There's different topics that are discussed. So, coding and billing, and then there's small breakout groups as well. So there's opportunities, there's different topics that may appeal more to a newer allergist. There might be some topics that are more appealing to or more important for an allergist that maybe wants to add someone to their practice. So there's different kind of breakouts that each person basically chooses what they want to do. And every session, if you're not able to make it, obviously, there's going to be the recording, and then you can listen to it. And I think, again, like you said, we didn't have that before, but it's so valuable because, you want to learn from as much as you can, but it's like when you're at the big meeting too, we can't be everywhere at once. And it's important to have the opportunity to hear about something that you may have missed.
Mm-hmm. You've said the word networking at least twice, if not more. And when she served in your role, Dr. Priya Bansal was a guest on our podcast, and she discussed the practice management workshop. She kept discussing how networking was the most important part of the meeting to her as well. So tell us a little bit more about, how does this being in this in person at a workshop like this lead to new connections or even really help your practice grow?
So every year, and again, I said my first one, I was a fellow in training, so I got to meet different people. I met Marshall Gradovsky, Mohammed Yassin, and as time goes on, they really have helped over the years in different ways. So number one, you get to know them, but more importantly, the one-on-one conversations typically may be about, what have you done that has helped grow your practice? What have you done that you would want to do differently? What have you done that you would definitely not want to do again? And those conversations, I think, are just so important. Not being in person, I didn't realize how difficult it was until it happened. And then in the last 2 years being together again, I think I just appreciated it so much more because those valuable conversations cannot happen over a virtual conference, unfortunately.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Well, let's dissect some of the sessions that are going to occur throughout the weekend. And on the first afternoon, which is Friday, July 12th, I saw two titles that really intrigued me. The first one is titled Expanding Your Practice, New Procedures and Revenue Lines. Can you offer a preview of what will be discussed during that session?
Yeah, so there's always a lot of questions from our membership about how can I continue to grow. So whether it's, how to increase your use or let's say buy and bill for biologics, or how do I start with penicillin delabeling program? How do I build an OIT program? Those are all different topics that may be discussed because they're just different ways in which, we can continue to grow and offer more, again, based on our expertise for our patients.
The other title that caught my attention is titled Practice Mergers, Acquisitions, and Partnerships. I thought that was very intriguing. Can you explain why that's an important topic in today's healthcare climate?
Yes, nowadays especially, and again, this is going to be for different, medicine has changed. I would even say in the last 5 years, it's changed a lot, but in the last 20, 30, 40 years, it's really changed. So there are many practices which may have been freestanding for a long time, and they may have an opportunity or be approached by someone that either wants to acquire them or make them part, let's say, of a health system. Somebody maybe has been in practice as a solo, or maybe it's been a small group, but they want to add someone else. So these are all tips, on how some of these can be addressed. Will happen during this session, which is always an important session for everyone that attends.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those topics that nobody necessarily, I don't know, wants to talk about, but I think everybody needs to talk about, if that makes sense.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, for those of our listeners who aren't familiar, Dr. Hernandez-Trujillo has really been such an amazing mentor and offers tremendous insight to fellows in training across the country as she talks about negotiations, which frankly we could all probably benefit from learning more about. And I see that you're discussing this again during a Friday afternoon session along with Teresa Bingaman. Why are you so passionate about the topic of negotiating?
I love this question, Dave, and I'm going to tell you why. When I first came out as a young allergist, and I had amazing mentors, but I think when you first come out, you're scared, you don't know, you want to get a job. And maybe as time goes on, and I've seen this more and more, and not just an allergy, right? Having worked at a big institution, speaking with other, I would say more contemporary people my age, but speaking with other subspecialists, it's important to know our value. So negotiation, as I tell everyone, is two-sided. So we can make a list. We can make a list of what we want. What we want to make sure, and we need to realize, you're not going to probably get 100%. If you do, marvelous. You got you're lucky, but that's not realistic. A negotiation it sometimes includes compromise between two people. But I think the important thing is just knowing that you can negotiate and you should negotiate. And I can say, and I will say this as a female, and I will say it as a Latina, because that's what I've encountered also in my institution. We are not the best at negotiating, but you can negotiate. So I think it's not only a skill. I often talk about a book called Getting to Yes, because that book was something that I read 20 years ago, and it was wonderful. I didn't read it before I signed my first contract, unfortunately, but I have recommended it for many people because, again, we can have our list of, this is what I would love, and we may not get everything, and that's fine. But at least know what your negotiables are and what your non-negotiables are. And there is room to negotiate. Know your value. I'm approached every year by so many people just asking, different questions. And, I always recommend, if you're going to sign any contract or agreement, please speak to an attorney that is actually, if that's their expertise, because that's important to make sure all the fine details. But, we need to just be fair to ourselves. That's really what it's about. For me, the reason I'm so passionate about is that I want people treated fairly, and not everybody is treated fairly. But I think that it's important. And I really do enjoy working with the fellows in training and the newer allergists, because I really just feel like it's an opportunity, to give back, but also I want the future of our specialty to be as strong as possible. So we all deserve to be happy in what we're doing. And if we're not, then change should happen.
What was the name of the book that you recommended again?
Getting to Yes.
Getting to Yes. Okay. May I add another one
I'm
in
going
that
to get
realm?
you yes, please.
So it's Never Split the Difference,
There you go.
which
Yep.
was from Chris Voss, a former hostage negotiator. And that changed a lot for me as well.
Awesome.
So, yeah, this is great.
Getting to Yes is by Roger Fisher, and William Ury. I forgot to say that.
Okay, no, and thank you, because I just actually reserved it for my library. So there you go. All right.
Awesome.
So
awesome.
Let's move on. I'm very selfishly interviewing you here for, so thank you very much. So Saturday's lineup has great sessions on coding, government regulations, and negotiating managed care contracts. These are topics that are all essential in running a successful practice. What can attendees expect to learn about in these sessions?
Okay, so the coding updates are important because changes are made every year. And again, our reimbursement is based on this, as well as government regulations. So when there's any changes, we want to be aware of those. A very exciting one, honestly, this year is the negotiating managed care contracts, which we're always asked how to do this. We're actually going to have a former managed care executive speaking, and it's I'm sure not only going to be well attended and appreciated, but that's something that is going to be invaluable for our membership.
That's great. And I noticed with several of the Saturday afternoon sessions that there's a common theme and a focus on teams, both in building them and maintaining them. What led the committee to decide to have multiple sessions with different areas of focus on the topic of teams?
I like that. Yeah, I love that too. We, with very few exceptions, I will say, with very few exceptions, we function as a team, right? Whether you're in solo practice, you still have people around you. Whether you're in a large institution, the multidisciplinary teams, for example, are so important. So we thought, just looking at it from different perspectives, again, the attraction or the appeal for someone who may be a new graduate or newly in practice is going to be, for some of these topics, but for someone else who has been in practice for longer, who may be in charge of managing people or might be in charge of, the hiring and firing. These are all important aspects that are going to appeal to different people, but they need to be addressed. And we really wanted to just look, give people the opportunity. And again, because there are different sessions, you can pick which one to attend, and then you can listen to the recording after the meeting if you're not able to attend one that you wanted to.
No, I think that's so important as well. Well, everything wraps up with the practice management workshop on Sunday morning with case-based real-world coding scenarios that I'm sure many of us struggle with. For me, I always get frustrated when I learn that I've been coding inappropriately. Sometimes I find out, years after the fact. And I think this session sounds great. Was this included out of the collective frustration of the planning committee, or is there another backstory here?
No, that is a great, and you're not alone in that comment. This is something that we have found has been very valuable. Again, not only with the person who's presenting it, but then the discussion that happens amongst the whole group, right? Because this is on its own, so everyone really attends it, and then it opens up different questions, different experiences people have had, whether it's about drug allergy or it's about venom or it's about allergen immunotherapy. Those are all different. So the reason that we really included it is it's an opportunity for active discussion and what's happening, in Ohio with this and what's happening with Florida with this. And the discussions are very valuable, and we all learned from going through these. And it's several cases, and every year it's one of my favorites.
Well, by all means, I encourage all of our listeners to go to the website, look at the entire program. We did not discuss every single session that's going to be throughout the weekend. There's a lot more in store than what we covered here. But did I miss any major topics or highlights? Anything else you're particularly interested in learning more about?
I really think, the wellness, so well-being of the team, wellness, burnout, that's important. But you hit on all the highlights, and I think, practice efficiencies is another one. How to be efficient, how to improve. Those are all. There's just so many different valuable topics.
Mm-hmm. Did I see something about social media for your practice as well?
Social media may be increased. Yes, there is. Yes, and that's something that I'm excited about. And maybe in the future, Dave, you may want to join us for one of these as one of our speakers.
I would love to. Thank you. I'm typically on vacation when these occur.
That will be our loss then.
Yeah. This has been a great discussion, and I think hopefully, having you on the podcast will spread the word for anybody who even wasn't aware of this or may be interested in attending, in person, which again, the Practice Management Workshop will be taking place July 12th to the 14th, 2024 in Denver, Colorado. I'm going to put you on the spot. Can you give us a 90-second elevator pitch as to why anybody listening should consider attending?
So the AAAAI Practice Management Workshop is an opportunity for any new or experienced practicing allergists or their staff and team members to come and enjoy not only the opportunity to network and discuss different challenges with other people, but also learn and come up with some of the solutions. It's really an opportunity to improve things like coding, which should help with reimbursement. This particular meeting, there's going to be discussion about how to possibly negotiate with our insurance company contract. So I invite all to come and also build a network. That is an important part of our meeting. There's always time for speaking with other people and really just having the opportunity to help each other out and ensure that the future of our specialty is strong.
That's fantastic. I heard words such as learn, improve, and build. I mean, who wants to pass on that, right? Well,
Yes.
unfortunately, yeah, I'm jealous I can't attend. I will be on vacation at this time, but I love Denver, especially in the summertime. I did look. I was just curious. So it turns out, unfortunately, the Colorado Rockies, the Major League Baseball team, they're going to be out of town that weekend. But Billy Joel is having a concert at Coors Field on July 12th, that Friday. Is that included with the registration fee for attendees?
Oh, I wish it was.
Yeah. That would be, I mean, something to consider, for the future at least.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, what about you? Is there anything specific that you're looking forward to doing while in Denver?
I enjoy the city very much, and to be honest with you, we enjoy the food. So when I'm not in the meeting, I do plan on enjoying some different culinary experiences while I'm there.
Excellent. Well, I hope you have a great time and all the attendees as well. Dr. Hernandez-Trujillo, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to join us today. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, I really hope that everyone will consider coming, and if they can't come this year, hopefully next year. And if you can't come, you can send some of your office staff, because there's always a great opportunity. And thank you so much, Dave, for the opportunity to be on the podcast again.
Oh, it's our pleasure. Thank you. We hope you enjoyed listening to today's episode. Please visit www.AAAAI.org for show notes, the link for the registration page. And if you like the show, please take a moment to subscribe to our podcast through Apple Podcasts, Amazon, iHeartRadio, or Spotify so you can receive new episodes in the future. Thank you again for listening.